Today's video is brought to you by Tour Lima, tourlima.com.
Green Wave Radio Live. We are taking calls from around the world. We've got a local one here. We've got a few other of you in the queue. I'll be getting to you in a moment. And very important question. You know, we've got some concerns. What is happening around Cyprus? What is happening around potential contagion? What we're seeing in Europe. Is this spreading? Is it to be something to be concerned about now? Of course, it's something to be concerned about. Of course, the financial markets are structurally insolvent. But what are we supposed to do in the interim? And I reported on this. There were reports out over the weekend, one of them which came from Forbes. The Federal Reserve, of course, is meeting this week, giving no indication at all of pulling up off the gas pedal of this money printing. And they're printing tens of billions of dollars a month. They've printed over $10 trillion thus far since the bailouts of 2008, coupled with artificial interest rates to propel this fake recovery higher, which is what we have today with the Dow Jones Industrial Average, hitting all-time highs. But to answer the question specifically, again, what I'm concerned about and what I think every American should be most concerned about regarding their finances is inflation, which I think we are seeing, and it's quite obvious already. The way to hedge that inflation is pretty simple. Get into something. Get out of cash is the biggest driving point. Get out of cash. You do not want to be in cash. You do not want to be in the dollar in an inflationary environment. So you can pretty much buy anything. You can, you don't even have to be a gold, silver bug or a gold, silver type person, although those are things that I would recommend. But you can invest in the stock market. You can invest in real estate. You can invest in land. You can invest in a business, anything, but get into something physical that will keep pace with inflation and protect the real value of your money. So in terms of Cyprus, I think that is just an early stage beta test. I don't think that is signaling, total financial meltdown tomorrow. What would change my mind, and that I think is a pretty definite of what will happen in the future, is eventually that contagion will spread. What would change my mind in terms of its immediate severity, meaning like what's going to happen tomorrow, would be if, I wake up tomorrow or you wake up tomorrow and you start reading that the bank runs and the contagion has quickly spread to Italy, Spain, Ireland. When that starts happening and the bank runs start domino affecting across Europe, then that would change my immediate, opinion and, I guess my investment approach to what's happening. Does that kind of answer your question, or do you have a follow-up to that? Let me take you off mute here. I think I still have you on mute. Okay, that should work there. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah, that answers the question, I also, this is a little bit off the topic of financing, but recently I've been looking into, Obama's other unconstitutional executive orders. I don't know if you are familiar with them, but if you read them, they're pretty crazy, but none of them follow the Constitution at all. And it just makes me wonder, how can he even make these, even though he's not, using them right now, without Congress doing anything about it, or, any branch of the government, keeping him in check, saying you can't do this?
Yeah, well, to answer that question, quite honestly, President Barack Obama, along with a lot of other people in Washington and Wall Street, are above the law. That's just the reality. So these people are not, true law-abiding citizens. They're not treated like us. These people are, in my opinion, kings and queens of the land. They can do pretty much whatever they want. Something that I think ties into, your question and kind of your investigation of this is, I tweeted this a few minutes ago, a little bit earlier, but no assault weapons ban. There's an article, not even in Dem's bill. Feinstein, her plan has been foiled, at least temporarily. It says here from Washington, the Associated Press, all but ending chances for an assault weapons ban. Democratic leaders said Tuesday the firearms legislation the Senate will debate next month won't include the provision that gun control advocates pressed for after an assault-type weapon was used in a Newtown school shooting in December. So Harry Reid spoke about this earlier. Dianne Feinstein said she's very disappointed. She's going to see if she can include this in some kind of amendment. So this is what I'm thinking. And this is why I'm even more concerned, quite frankly, now, because it ties in what I thought in the first place, is that none of this is ever going to pass the Senate. It's not going to pass the House. It's just not going to happen. There's too much Republican opposition to it. There's even too much, in my opinion, moderate Democrat opposition to this anti-constitutional measure. But there lies the problem, and there lies the rub, is President Barack Obama, operating above the law, doesn't need any of this to pass. He can just use, Newtown. He can use any of these events, a future event in the not-too-distant future, as a scapegoat, and he'll just flat-out executive order these weapons bans. And he might, and I think is very likely that's exactly what he's going to do. He's going to say, look, we couldn't get it passed, blah, 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 but to save the children, and he'll use the children as a human political shield. That way you can't argue with him, and he'll move it and he'll pass it, just like he bypassed Congress to invade Libya, and countless other, events that we could pretty much go on and on about. So that's what's scary about what's happening, is we have people clearly above the law, and this is very much a dictatorial rule over the American people, and the people of America need to understand that. Any other questions?
Yeah, actually, I mean, in my research in the executive orders, I also stumbled upon the 10 planks of a Communist Manifesto, and basically the article I read was basically saying that we're halfway there. We're basically a socialist country, and we've just been, I guess, in our education, we've been like, oh, America, land of the free, we're the best country, and we just, grow up thinking that and living our lives when we're following those 10 planks more closely than we follow the Constitution, and it just makes me feel like, everyone's been deceived and lied to about what America really is. We're a socialist communist country. We're like right in between or almost there, I don't understand why more people don't see this.
Yeah, and either do I. And there's a lot of debate. Is it communism? Is it socialism? Is it fascism? I would argue it's more of a fascist rule, although there's elements of socialism and even a communism sense to what's happening. And even the Nazis themselves, when Hitler was rising to power, there was, it was fascism, but there was a lot of elements of socialism, and a lot of the people, key to his rule, close to him at the time, were trying to socialize things more through what they were accomplishing at that period of time in history. But what we do know for sure that is really not argumentative at all is this sure as heck isn't a constitutional republic anymore. Not how the country was set up. And, we don't seem to care. Well, we do, but these people in charge don't seem to care about individual personal freedom, liberty. We're having debates where honestly people like Rand Paul, one of the only people actually saying anything about it, like, hey, this is wrong. I mean, we're debating whether or not these guys can drone strike us while we're having a cup of coffee at a cafe with our friend. I mean, that's how far and crazy and just insane this stuff is, which just kind of proves the point that, this isn't the America that was intended by our founding fathers. This is not the constitutional republic that we set up. And it's a sad state of affairs, and that's why we got to, continue to get the message out and do what we can to change that and to preserve, that system, which I think is a lot better way to live than, any other fascist dictator telling me what to do is. Maybe one last question, and I'll go to the next caller.
Yeah, I mean, I've also seen some stuff, people basically trying to get people behind repealing the 16th and 17th Amendment, one basically saying, the income tax, and then the other one is that, senators are elected by the people, which sounds good, but really it's bad because senators are supposed to be ambassadors for the states, and if we did that, it would bring more power back to the states, and maybe the government would start working back in, I guess, the favor of the people and state sovereignty, which would protect us even better. I was just wondering what you maybe thought about that.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm full support of state rights, and I think that's one of the great things and the great parts of how the republic was set up is that, ultimately the states have a say pretty much in everything. And it's a reason why President Barack Obama might, very well, and in my opinion, he will. He will use an executive order, pass an executive order, or force an executive order, however you want to call it, regarding gun legislation, gun control, gun ban, going after assault weapons, magazine clips holding more than 10 rounds, etc. But this is not something that the states are going to go for. The states are going to fire back. Literally, I don't know. Hopefully not. But figuratively, at the very least, they're going to fight back. And if they have to, it will result in civil war, unfortunately, which I don't think is, what anybody wants. But, that's how the country was built. So, we have a president or we have people in power taking over dictatorially. The states aren't going to put up with it. And, it's going to cause a lot of problems. And we're seeing this happen now. There's a reason why these secession petitions have been signed in record numbers across all 50 states, most notably in places like Texas and Arizona and the more liberty-minded states. But this won't end well. And, thank God, I hope it ends well, but thank God for the fact that we have states' rights and that, we have states unwilling to put up with these kinds of shenanigans. I'm going to go to the next caller here. Thank you, caller, for calling in. I really appreciate you. You asked a lot of very poignant, really good questions. Let's go to our next caller. It's the 215 area code, 215. Hi, you're on the air. What's on your mind? You are on the air. Do you have a question or comment? I can hear you. I don't know if you can hear me. Let's go to the next caller. This is a 678. A 678. Hi, you're on the air. What's on your mind?
How you doing, Chris?
Pretty good. How are you doing?
Just got a lot on my mind. Like I've been up here watching different alternative news sources today. All of them are speaking on the same subject you are. We seeing a lot of people in Cyprus getting their money took out without any permission or whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
I find that real crazy. I mean, what does that say about the people of America?
Those are great questions, and what it says, and we kind of touched a little bit on this, is that people don't think that this can happen in America. That it's not. Who cares about Cyprus, etc. The point is, it is already happening in America. I mean, whether or not there is an overt penalty, tax, confiscation of money out of your bank account, like in Cyprus, and what Cyprus just experienced over the weekend, doesn't really matter because we are already being silently taxed to the virulent threat of inflation, courtesy of the policies at the Federal Reserve. And keep in mind too, they're intentionally inflating our currency so that they can attempt to service the interest payments and the debt that we can never pay back. So they want to inflate the currency. It's a way that they can steal. Is when you're doing this intentionally, this is overt stealing, just like in Cyprus, from the American people to inflate the currency to at least help in the short term pay off the debt that they can never pay back in full until they come up with another bailout or there is another, in my opinion, guaranteed future shock, like what we saw in 2008, at some point, whether or not it's today, tomorrow, 2 years, or 3 years from now, doesn't matter. But at some point, the contagion will spread from Cyprus to Italy, to Ireland, to Spain, to Portugal, to Germany, etc., to the United States, and it'll be a systemic breakdown like what we saw in '08. But in my opinion, will be much worse because, again, we have only magnified these problems. We're in more debt. We've printed more. We've bailed out more. We've strengthened the same financial institutions, made them bigger. The too big to fail banks are bigger and more of a risk than they ever were before. Maybe not today per se, but when the contagion does spread, that's when we really have to worry. And that is the very saddening, deeply saddening aspect of it, which we don't have to be locked in a, depression or anything like that, but it should be motivation to, okay, well then how do I beat what's happening? What do I do if I know inflation is taxing me and it's killing my livelihood and my ability or, my friend's ability to say, retire or just have a better quality of life or whatever it might be, whatever your goals are.
It also
do something positive, and you can do that. You can take steps to protect yourself against these things, and that's what the American people, in my opinion, should be doing.
I mean, like what? I mean, with them, now that you see them doing all of these things out in the open, I mean, they want to take your rights and want to tell you what type of food or how big of a cup of soda you could have or whatnot. And also Bloomberg is talking about banning takeout plates or whatnot. And also, how is it safe to say that entrepreneurship will be a great thing in today? Would starting your own business be safe to do when you see society breaking down, when you see the system is breaking down? Would it be okay, or would it be a great thing to want to go out and try to start your own business when you see that capitalism is almost not a great thing anymore?
Love that red, white, and blue. Love that flag. Got a big one hanging up right next to me here as I deliver this broadcast. I'm Christopher Green. This is Green Wave Radio Live, broadcasting around the world, taking your calls. We had opened up the phone lines. If you'd like to give us a call, ask a question, comment, you have something on your mind, a concern, maybe feedback, maybe a comment. It can be anything. This time is for you. Second hour, I like to take as many calls as possible. 218-339-8525. Also have a few other stories I'm going to be digging into in a moment. I had a gentleman ask a question before the last break. Hey, Christopher, is it a good time to start a business? Is this a good time to be an entrepreneur? My answer to that is a very simple yes. Yes. And I'm one of those types of people. I think it's always a good time to start a business. I don't care what the environment is. In fact, in my opinion, the more cruddy the economy is and the system itself is unraveling before us, quite frankly, the more opportunity there is if you're willing to see where the opportunity lies. And, there's been a ton of people out of work, lost their jobs, they've lost their homes. And again, this hits close to home to me, too, because I know these people. And it's been a very rough couple of years for a lot of people that I care about. But that doesn't mean that you can't pick yourself up by your bootstraps and honestly make things happen. And there's incredible opportunities. My favorite, to give you specific examples, my two favorite areas in terms of where I think there's the opportunity, and it's just my opinion. I'm sure that there are other areas as well. Technology, look at how technology is transforming our world in a lot of good ways and a lot of bad ways. Good ways, communication. It's opened up the internet. It's opened up a platform for media and discussion and these social networks, which are great. It's also opened up what could be a very big negative. The transhumanism movement, Google Glass, total Big Brother Orwellian 1984 police state type controls, that's the negative. But the positive is it's opened up the world to where And it's going to change. It's not always going to be this way, but at least it still is today. And I think will be over the next few years an opportunity where anybody with a good idea can start something pretty much from nothing and can get it going if they've got enough passion, guts, and balls and goodwill to keep it going. So technology is a favorite. Health and wellness is a favorite. People are waking up in droves to the fact that there's so much toxicity in our lives, especially the food that we eat, the food that we consume, the air we breathe, the water that we drink, the propaganda that's being streamed to us from the mainstream television, et cetera. So anything around health and wellness and organic living and just, bringing real value to people and their lives and making them happier, healthier beings is an incredible opportunity to me. And these are all worthwhile pursuits, not just from a business perspective, but worthwhile pursuits just from a worldly, being a good person, wanting to make the world a better place perspective. So those are some big areas of opportunity. And it's sad, too, because a lot of people will be discouraged, which is the reality because of the nature of the economy and the nature of these problems. There's a lot of business owners or potential entrepreneurs that will not start a business or give it a shot because, they're worried about, reality. They're worried about the environment and money and being able to make it, to the next paycheck. So I would just say don't let that deter you. If you have a passion for something, never let anybody tell you to give up on that. Never quit. Never give up. And, just trust me in the fact that, and I can say this because, I've been through this myself personally. Just believe in yourself. And honestly, you're going to have your detractors. People are going to tell you can't do it. They're going to tell you you're crazy. They're going to tell you you're a loser. Your own family and friends might even turn on you. But if you really believe in what you're doing and you're passionate about it, just stick with it and breathe it and live it and work harder than anybody else, and you will be a success, and nobody can ever take that away from you. And, that's kind of the beauty of the struggle. People say, hey, I really respect people that, it was blood, sweat, and tears that got them to where they were, et cetera. And that really is true. And I think it's about the journey and all of our personal journeys in life that really is the beauty of, being a human being and having aspiration and trying to accomplish things, et cetera. Because none of it's about, it is for some people, but it's never been for me. It's not about money or, oh, I'm going to go out and buy myself 14 Rolexes or something like that. I mean, that's just not something I've ever cared about. It's about just doing something that you love and doing something you care about. That honestly gets your blood pumping in the morning and you're like, yeah, I'm doing this. So I would just encourage all of you to, to find that. And it's not that anything is ever perfect. Everything has its, faults, its downfalls, its challenges. Everything's a job to a certain extent, no matter what you do. No matter if you're the multi-million-dollar, highly paid athlete, Hollywood actor, or whatever, it doesn't matter. Everything can be a job at time to time, but what's important is you care about it. And if you care about it and have that passion, I believe you can make a difference. And, you can strike a wedge into the system and make things better than what they currently are. I don't know if this is the person that had called us prior or is a new caller, but I'm going to bring it back on. Let me see if I can't unmute that. Hi, you're back on the air. You have a question or comment?
Yes, I do. How's it going, Chris? I talked to you a few months ago.
Cool.
So I've been thinking a lot about, Operation Mockingbird and the whole CIA thing to get the people into the media. And I was thinking
a little bit. Explain, and I'm sorry, but yeah, kind of detail that a little bit more to our audience that isn't familiar with that.
Well, I don't know a whole lot of the specifics, but there was a CIA op to basically infiltrate the now the mainstream media and vet stories and get basically their narrative out as opposed to any sort of independent analysis.
Okay.
And getting basically moles and insiders into, and that was back a couple decades decades ago, I think. So, I mean, you can't even imagine, like, how sophisticated and developed it is now. They're just complete control of the media. And I was thinking that you've got this rise of the alternative media these days, and of course it would make sense to try and infiltrate that as well. And you've got an audience who's listening to this media who's somewhat more informed generally than the people who are watching mainstream media. So you have to up the level of disinformation. You have to have more sophisticated propaganda. And to an extent, I think you have to add in you have to give some amount of the truth in order to act as somewhat of a hook, a bait, in order to, because if you can get people to believe what you're saying, then you can then guide them in whatever direction you want, in which case it could be entirely away from the actual truth.
Sure, and that's something that we all need to look at and be aware of and conscious of. And, I've always been someone that has always believed that the media and, propaganda itself is some of the most, effective, manipulative type of, I guess, control over people. I mean, think about it. We're indoctrinated as children. We're immediately placed in front of televisions. We're, reciting the Pledge of Allegiance at schools. We're being told and shown and programmed this is how the world works, et cetera. To not ask questions. We go through school. We're indoctrinated through the public education system. And, it's kind of the nature versus nurture argument, but we're all programmed to a certain extent. Whether or not we're Americans being programmed or we're Japanese being programmed, or, we're anywhere else in the world. But I think what you're saying is really actually cool and also important because you said specifically things are becoming a lot more sophisticated. And I can tell you just offhand, being somebody that, is within the, alternative media movement itself, and it has been kind of at the forefront of that, it is becoming a lot more sophisticated. And what I mean by that is that what I see is, and I'm sure of it, I'm sure there's moles, I'm sure there's people like that within or trying, if they're not already, to infiltrate, the alternative media movement or even the liberty movement itself or libertarianism, et cetera, for some time now. But the algorithm itself is becoming a lot more difficult to penetrate. Google, for example, I mean, it's got a monopoly. It is a monopoly of information. My opinion, holding the government itself. Just doing videos, if we're just going to talk about, putting videos out, to give you perspective on that, it's getting a lot harder to get our videos out. It's so much more fragmented, and there's so much more competition than there was a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago. So what I see, there's still some opportunity the next few years, but there's a massive consolidation process occurring, which means the old traditional mainstream media is now infiltrating. They're consolidating. They are pushing out the little guys. It's making it a lot more difficult to just be like some random person, honestly, like myself, that's really who I was, just, a random person that had a beef with what was going on, started putting things online, and then, here we are a few years later, and we're broadcasting daily content, et cetera. So what I think is important and has always been the most important thing to me is the message, and I think that's how we can kind of evaluate not only ourselves, but other people and other media platforms, is what is their message? I mean, what are they ultimately saying at the end of the day? And I try to hold myself accountable to that as well. Every video I put out, there's something I'm trying to say in it, like a specific message. And if I didn't get that out, or it's not understood, then I would evaluate that as pretty much being a failure of me not conveying that message. So I think we do need to be wary and always questioning, and I've always encouraged that. But the system itself is becoming a lot more sophisticated, especially with the new technology with Google Glass, and the fact that we're going to be I'm not saying necessarily I'm going to be wearing these things, but people wearing these things all around us, all around me, ads serviced over their eyes. I mean, these are just the glasses. Imagine when they start implanting these things, you know, in your eye. You know, I'm sure that they can put it like in like a contact, or they might even be able to just like physically plant that like as a retina or something on your eye. I mean, this is insane to give anyone, anybody, any company, any institution, any government complete and total power over the people, which quite frankly is positive and as awesome as Google has been, and even allowing, you know, little guys like me to get our message out and to produce content. There's also this other side that's extremely dangerous, which I, you know, conveyed or tried to do to the best of my ability in our video, The Surveillance State, which I encourage everybody to watch if you haven't already watched it. You have any other questions? You want to kind of expand upon that at all?
Well, I guess it all comes back to the Hegelian dialectic and the problem, reaction, solution thing. And the truth is, I mean, the truth of what's going on is out there. You know, it's inevitable at some point that it's going to get out. So it seems like it would benefit them to control that, the way that that's released, and guide the reaction of the people. Like the problem in that, and the problem, reaction, and solution could be, you know, everything that we're talking about, and they want to guide the reaction to that so that they can impose, like, if you can control the dissent, you know, it goes back to the funding both sides of every war. You know, if you can control the dissent to the opposition to the, you know, the New World Order or whatever you want to call it, then you can guide the way that conflict proceeds.
Yeah, well, I think a perfect example of that is Occupy Wall Street.
I agree.
I think there were certainly organic components of it. You know, it's people just being angry, pissed off with the bailouts, et cetera. But that to me was a giant smokescreen created by the system itself, and by those that influence propaganda, et cetera. And, you know, a lot of people have talked about Adbusters being one of the first groups, if you want to call it a group, to kind of, you know, start that movement. I really think Occupy Wall Street, its purpose was to diffuse a lot of the civil unrest and disobedience that was kind of naturally brewing as a byproduct of what was happening economically and financially. So, of course, I mean, these people are a lot more powerful than we are. What's dangerous is this predictive technology. Google being 1,000 steps ahead of us now knows what we want before we want. I mean, there's hundreds of millions of dollars. Everybody hold on. I know we got a break coming up. I'm going to finish the show with a couple more calls. Caller, you stay on because I'd like to ask you a couple more questions, but I want to get into this in more detail. Everybody hold on. We'll be right back in just a minute. We are back, having a great show today, taking your calls. I'm going to go to as many calls as we can as we finish out. Just a blockbuster show today. Of course, released a new video, Hillary Flip-Flop Clinton turns gay today. And I'm just reading some of the comments. You guys crack me up. JCB1416 writes, Hitlery Rotten Clinton. I don't know why, but I thought that was kind of funny. Icky, Sicky, Uck, girl says, hey, boy, LOL, all politicians, actors are reptilians, et cetera, et cetera. So, okay, back to the point. We're talking about the Orwellian police state, Google Glass, the monopoly, 1,000 steps ahead of us. I mean, without getting too Matrix on everybody here, I really encourage you, watch the video I put out, the documentary, mini-doc, Surveillance State. I mean, it gets in all these questions. I think we did a really good job presenting the material and getting people to think this technology, yes, is good in a lot of ways, is liberating us, but is also extremely dangerous in a lot of others. A specific question you wanted to get to, caller? I believe you're still with us.
Yeah, that's right. I was thinking about this thing in Cyprus. I agree with you that that's sort of a trial run to see how that sort of thing would go down worldwide. But I do disagree with you somewhat about when this economic event that is going to happen is going to happen. I think it's going to happen sooner than later. I don't think we're going to see the Dow hitting 18,000 or 17,000 or whatever. I think that this is happening. The thing in Cyprus is happening because they can't hold on to the illusion very much longer. And eventually, sometime soon, I think that we're going to cross that threshold when the time for deception is over and they drop the hammer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I think the timing, we can guess. Nobody knows. You could very well be right. And it wouldn't surprise me. But, the timing, there's kind of an old Wall Street saying, I mean, you can be on the right side of the trade and honestly lose your shirt, too, because they, prop the market up longer than you expect, or, a lot of people bought the bank stocks when they were collapsing, weren't in the market during the collapse, bought the bank stocks at, $7, didn't think it would go to zero, so it's a lot of the times you can be right. What I think we can probably both agree on is that there's a systemic problem, in the financial markets. It will result in contagion and a breakdown and a shock at some point in time. The problem is we don't know when that's going to be. And the risk, is, at least as I perceive it, for the average person, family, mother, father, grandfather, working person, retiree, potential retiree, is, it really just comes back and boils down to inflation again to me, where, people are going to be in a lot of trouble if they hold this thing together another few years and nothing happens and there is no shock. There's just going to be massive inflation. So what is that going to mean? We're all, don't mean us, but just in general, are people just going to be penniless after it's all said and done? And that's a serious threat. What are your thoughts?
Well, I agree that inflation is the biggest threat, but I also think that the derivatives are a big problem. And as I'm sure as everybody knows, the derivatives were the heart of of the 2008 crisis. And there's way more derivatives in the system today than there were back then. And if that amount of derivatives could cause a crisis of that magnitude that nearly collapsed our entire economy, what is this going to do? Well, they're going to, I don't remember exactly how much, it's like 1.4 quadrillion or something of derivatives in the system right now, worldwide. That's an inconceivable number.
Yeah, and just to show you, and you probably know this because it sounds like you've studied up on this a little bit, but yeah, a multi-quadrillion figure in the derivatives market is as big as the Milky Way. That's one of the ways I've always used to describe it, because it's an unfathomable amount of derivatives, which, again, what's going to happen? Well, I don't think there's going to be a shock. I think it ends pretty much the system itself.
I agree.
Which is what the politicians and why they're orchestrating kind of this, painful, slow, let's buffer some of the losses here at Cyprus today, do this tomorrow before eventual, honestly, total catastrophe. Bank runs, total contagion all across Europe. The dollar here in the States won't be worth the paper it's printed on. Zimbabwe insanity. And I know that sounds, a little bit Mad Max, but ultimately that's how bad it is. I just don't know, and people don't know, when is that going to happen? When is there the structural shift? When does it just all of a sudden unravel? And it could be this year, could be tomorrow, who knows? But it could also be a few years from now, 5 years from now. It could be 10 years from now. Nobody knows. And that's what's scary, is what happens then in the short run. And the question that, I ask myself, and I think a lot of people ask themselves, okay, what can I do to protect myself and my family then while this is happening? And, I think it's pretty simple, really. I mean, just honestly, you got to get out of cash. I don't care how you do it. People know I like gold and silver, but it doesn't have to be gold and silver. Just get in anything. Get out of cash.
I think the solution is food, honestly, because I know a lot of people are into gold and silver and stuff, but if the entire system collapses, people can't eat gold and silver, and what people are really going to be after is food, because if you don't eat, you're going to starve to death, and then you need that more than anything. And anyway, I just think that's the most important thing to have.
Well, that's a excellent point too, and I think people need to keep in mind it's not that there's one specific like you don't want to necessarily be non-diversified and just have gold and silver and just be sitting. I mean, you want to. What do they tell you in investing? Diversify, spread the risk. Of course, cover the basic needs first. Cover food, water, shelter, etc. But in terms of your investments and actually trying to, protect that, well, yeah, gold, silver. You can buy stocks even though I'm not someone that trusts the stock market.
Yeah.
Insolvent, but I mean, that's better than cash. I mean, if you've been invested in the stock market, you've done pretty well over the past 12 months. So, that's fine as long as you're, protecting yourself. The question is, when does it get ugly? And I got to start taking some of our other calls here. Thank you so much for giving us a buzz, my friend. Let's go to the next caller. This is an 808 number. Hi, you're on the air. What's on your mind?
Hi there, Mr. Green.
Hey, how are you?
I'm well. Great to meet you. I really enjoy your videos online as well as Mr. Morrison's. I try to share them with as many people as I can.
Well, thank you. Well, thanks for sharing, and nice to meet you as well. What's on your mind?
Well, I was thinking about the Google Glass and speaking with some friends about it the other night. And we were trying to figure out, there was a lawsuit not too long ago. I'm not sure what the outcome was with there was a school, and they were taking home computers, and they were able to someone had turned on the camera, and had videotaped some of these, kids, what they were doing, and through these laptops. And, I don't remember what the exact outcome was of this whole incident. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it or not. But in regards to the Google Glass, I mean, how are we going to know when there's, pedophiles or something videotaping kids because they have these glasses on? And I just don't understand how this is gonna work. Will businesses have signs that say, you're not allowed to wear that in here? I mean, what are we gonna do with it?
Yeah, well, you're asking just real logical questions, and we're starting to see, and honestly, I think we will see a little bit, could manifest into a big thing, a little bit of a backlash against Google Glass. And there's been, I think there was a few bars, or there was like a bar in Portland or one of those places, type of place that I had read that, they're banning Google Glass. There was a article over the weekend, some new website popped up. It was kind of going a little bit viral, where it was basically like, Google Glass is Big Brother, be aware, et cetera. So, I think people are smart too. I mean, there's a lot of people are raising these questions, and the answer to is you won't know who's recording you. But this goes so much further than just the Google Glass technology. This is just touching the surface. I mean, these systems will know your chemistry, will have your heart rate and the way that you feel, and will be servicing ads based on your biology. It'll be 1,000 moves ahead of you. I mean, if this isn't Star Trek and, George Orwell's 1984 prediction, I don't know what is. And we just need to be cognizant of it. It's not that technology is necessarily evil, but we need to understand that it's dangerous. And if we don't understand that, it potentially poses a lot of problems. Thank you for calling. Apologize, I got to let you go. It's great having you on the program. Give us a call next time. We've got some great content coming up. AMTV News up shortly. Just had a video up. Hillary flip-flop, Clinton turns gay. Watch that. Thank you for tuning in. I'm Christopher Green, hard-hitting and in your face. I'll make sure to get this archive up soon.